Good day, disciples. Today we will be talking about why the moon of the Tralanga homeworld is red. Around 50 years before the reality sphere was invented, the Tralanga homeworld had 8 different countries, each one controlling a sizable portion of the planet's surface, oceans, and cave systems. But the leaders of one country in particular, the country of Kartrol, which was a socialist dictatorship very similar to the USSR, decided that they wanted to establish a foothold on their homeworld's moon, mainly to mine resources, but also to create and deploy orbital weapons as part of their plan to invade and conquer neighboring countries and potentially the whole planet. But the main issue with this plan was the moon's lack of atmosphere and high levels of solar radiation. So to fix this, the leaders of Kartrol had their secret police force a bunch of their best scientists to engineer something that would make the moon easier to inhabit. The result of this being a genetically modified moss fungus hybrid that would utilize the solar radiation to produce oxygen and other atmospheric gases using a heavily modified form of photosynthesis. The moss fungus also had a dark blue color, mainly to symbolize the flag of Kartrol as a way of saying, "Moon's ours now, nerds," to all the other countries. Anyway, the Kartrol government had the moss fungus launched to the moon without delay, and some simple monitoring equipment to observe its growth. For around 2 weeks after landing, everything seemed good. The moss fungus spread decently across a 20th of the moon's surface, and their monitoring equipment showed that it was slowly producing a breathable atmosphere. But around 4 weeks in, something happened. The moss fungus turned a bright red. It started spreading far quicker. It was now producing a carbon monoxide instead of breathable O2 oxygen, and other gases it was producing before, and strange moss fungus growths started showing up across the covered areas of the moon's surface. This very quickly caused public outrage and concern across the whole of Kartrol, and got large amounts of concerned international attention, so much that the leaders of Kartrol feared a revolution and potential sanctions. So the leaders of Kartrol forced their scientists to send a probe, gather samples, and figure out what went wrong. When the probe came back, they studied the samples and found a few things. Firstly, the moss fungus had adapted to the moon's surface. It had turned red, as red was better at absorbing solar radiation than blue. Secondly, it was producing carbon monoxide instead of O2 and other gases due to its metabolism adapting to the new influx of usable energy. And thirdly, the weird growths across the surface were due to one of the scientists being a real goober and not using sterile equipment, resulting in his own DNA getting into the moss fungus hybrid during production, which started showing itself due to mutations in the hybrid. After discovering all of this, the leaders of Kartrol gave a speech to calm the international concern, but basically claiming that these mutations were intentional and not a result of accident and genetic tomfoolery. But this didn't do much as the moss fungus continued to spread. And, as expected, they forced their scientists to find a way to fix it. So the scientists spent weeks developing a plant, which was basically a small tree, to convert the carbon monoxide into O2 and other atmospheric gases. But by the time they were done, the moss fungus had already completely taken over the moon's surface and was littered with bizarre growths that slowly kept getting bigger and forming into increasingly strange shapes. But despite this, the scientists sent seeds from the plants to the moon anyway, which grew and spread quite well, converting some of the carbon monoxide into O2 and other gases. But around a month after this, something alarming happened. Several large yellow eyes opened across the moon's surface, each one varying in size and shape. Most of these eyes were non-functional, deformed, and as a result, blind. But a few of them were observed to follow passing space rocks and satellites. This instantly set off major concern across the entire Tralanga homeworld, so much that all 7 other countries got their nuclear weapons ready in case the moss fungus hybrid infected moon were to have its elements activated and become hostile. Not only that, but a majority of the population of Kartrol started rioting and protesting, demanding their leaders be removed from office for creating what could easily become a world-ending threat. In response to this, the leaders of Kartrol quickly came up with a plan, gave a speech basically about how they planned to kill the growth across the moon, and they ordered their military and scientists to work together and develop a powerful toxin to kill the hybrid moss fungus, which ended up taking a few weeks to develop and deploy. Once that toxin was deployed on the moon, the hybrid slowly withered and died over the course of about a month. The eyes, growths, and the whole thing in general, breaking down into red dust, which is what gives the moon of Tralanga homeworld its current color. After the hybrid was dead, the riots stopped, and all 8 countries started regularly observing the moon, fearing that the hybrid may regrow and return, but luckily, it didn't. And due to the absolute international fear this caused, all 7 other countries put massive sanctions against Karchol for creating a potentially world-ending threat, causing them to quickly abandon the idea of terraforming the moon entirely. These sanctions were massive, and would end up being a contributing factor to the later collapse of Karchol. But that is a story for another day. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, leave a like, and share. Goodbye.